Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Hello, I'm J-Law, but you can call me Justin, and if you're joining us for the first time, well, we are Geekcentric, a podcast covering the world of movies, TV shows, toys, collectibles, gaming, and all things geek-centric. Now, before we venture off on our spoiler-free adventure, allow me to introduce you to my two lovely co-hosts. First up, she's a mystical friend, a druid, who is both wise and fierce as she fights to protect those who matter most to her. She is Miss Megan Clara. How are you?
Oh, I'm so great. Thank you so much. We were about 20 minutes out of the movie, and I was like, you know what? If I get to play Dungeons & Dragons, I want to be a druid.
Druid, yeah.
I'm so excited you remembered that.
I did. And we're not alone on this journey. Next up, we have our dragonborn friend who comes from a long line of the Ganja gods. He's a kind-hearted soul who looks out for the little ones and will stand up to evil that threatens peace and prosperity. He is Darcy Hudson. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I was billowing out a bunch of smoke there as you're introducing me, so I think it was very fitting for a dragonborn.
I did the Nate thing. I did a little research, and I thought I would write my own backstories for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Incredible.
It's how I see
Ganja gods
you.
is great.
Yeah,
Yes,
you may
the
have just
Ganja
created my next
gods.
character, so yeah, I will credit you if
Awesome.
that comes to be.
Well, before we get into our spoiler-free discussion about this movie, we are talking about Dungeons & Dragons, which started out as a fantasy tabletop role-playing game, and they did have one live-action adaptation prior to this one, which wasn't very good and wasn't well-received by fans and critics. But here we are, 2023, and they're taking another stab at bringing this role-playing game to the big screen. I wanted to know from you guys, what was your experience with Dungeons & Dragons heading into this movie? Darcy, why don't you kick things off?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been playing D&D on and off for several years now, so I'm no stranger to sitting around a table rolling some dice with some friends. And I mean, I probably got the worst luck with dice because I am barely succeeding on half of my rolls and all that stuff. But it's a fun way to tell a story and create a world and just hang with your friends. So I was stoked for this movie because the trailers were just making me think of everything good about D&D, and it's just the fun adventure and funny jokes that will happen around a table.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Meg, how about you?
Yeah, I came from pretty much no knowledge except for whatever I've seen on Big Bang Theory about Dungeons & Dragons. So, as a fan of fantasy and adventure films, this looked right up my alley when the trailer came out, so I was super stoked to see it. I had a little bit of fear going in that there would be some things that would go over my head because I don't know anything about D&D, so are there going to be references that I don't get, and then it kind of lowers the quality of the experience. But I can say with full confidence that that is not the case. It was so much fun, so incredible.
Yes. I am like you, Meg. I am not as experienced with the Dungeons and Dragons outside of Stranger Things and Big Bang Theory, and also Darcy's love
And
of
Darcy,
the game.
yeah.
Yeah, Darcy's love of the game. But that said, like I too was like you, Meg. I was a little intimidated going into this movie, even though I am a fan of fantasy adventure. I love Chris Pine. I love Michelle Rodriguez. There were so many things that were just speaking to me, upon seeing the trailer and hearing about this movie, that the only intimidating part about this whole movie was the fact that it was about Dungeons and Dragons. Yet, as you said, Meg, that doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, this movie has fun with that lore, and we will be discussing that in great detail as we get into it. So why don't we jump right in? This is our spoiler-free review for Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This stars Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Regé Jean Paul, Justice Smith, Sophia Lillis, Chloe Coleman, Daisy Head, and Hugh Grant. Directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly, who also wrote the screenplay for this movie. The film tells the story of a charming thief in a band band of unlikely adventurers who undertake an epic heist to retrieve a lost relic. But things go dangerously awry when they run afoul with the wrong people. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves brings the rich world and playful spirit of the legendary role-playing game to the big screen in a hilarious and action-packed adventure. Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves hits theaters March 31st. A huge thanks to our friends at Paramount Pictures and Paramount Pictures Canada for inviting us out to see this movie early so we can bring you our review ahead of the movie's release. Now, we were very excited to see this movie, and we're even more excited to share with you our thoughts, so let's get into it. Let's start with what worked. As we were mentioning right off the top, the fact that this is coming from such a rich lore of Dungeons and Dragons, yet, that might be the intimidating part, but it's incredible how, I'm going to use a buzzword here, it's not spectacle, but fun. This movie is incredibly fun overall, start to finish. Oh, yeah. I don't think I've had this much fun in a fantasy adventure movie in a really long time. It doesn't take itself seriously. It knows the world that it's in, but it's less concerned with all the ins and outs and all the details of the world. They're there. And if you know, which someone like I'm sure Darcy will be able to expand on some certain stuff. But, if you don't know, you're just experiencing this really great adventure, and it's tons of fun. It's an absolute blast.
Oh my God. Literally fun is the word, again, that we're all going to use, I think. I was on the edge of my seat the entire film, waiting for the next joke, waiting for the next crazy thing to happen. I was also gut busted laughing the entire movie. Couldn't stop, was probably one of the annoying people in the theater that was cackling. Chris Pine's fantastic. Michelle Rodriguez is fantastic. They brought the hilarity that we were expecting to this movie while also adding these layers of heart and soul that made this story feel real in such a fantasy imaginary world. So I have so many amazing things to say about this movie, but I know Darcy also has a lot to say about the D&D lore.
Yeah, well, I mean, just talking about D&D lore, the great thing is, they have all these books and all these campaigns and stuff written about this world, but a lot of the stories being told in the game are all unique to the players sitting around the table. So this movie wasn't intimidating, or I wasn't worried about them getting lore wrong, because as long as these backstories are solid, any story they tell can be canon in the D&D world. So they nailed that aspect of it, and that this story really felt like just a bunch of friends sitting around a table having fun playing a game. Because in most campaigns that at least I've been a part of, either playing or DMing, a lot of it is very funny. You're trying to do silly things and make other people laugh, but at the same time you're trying to save the world and fight evil and stuff like that. So you get a lot of these cool action pieces surrounded by a lot of humor and stuff. So this movie captures that perfectly, and like you guys said, it's a whole lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it's clear that Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley are clearly fans of Dungeons and Dragons, which is why they had so much fun. But above that, I think let's start talking about this cast, because I think this is where the movie really gets elevated. We have Chris Pine, who plays Edgin, naturally charming. To be the lead of this con heist adventure, if you will, it's so fitting, and it's so natural to who Chris Pine is. And the same could be said about Michelle Rodriguez's character, Holga, who is a tough, badass, take charge woman. She has played that character so many different times throughout her filmography. It is so refreshing to see her in something where she's playing a character that she's seemingly played before, but in a fantasy genre, in a genre where she gets to actually, I think, also just flex a lot more humor. And it's not even humor that's in your face, I'm out to make you laugh. It's just how serious she takes herself as the character. I think that, to have Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez as the leads in this adventure really makes sense. It shows their comfortability with playing the characters that they're playing, while also really giving off, both charming, heartfelt performances. And I absolutely love the dynamic between them. It's not romantic. It's best friends. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, they almost give off this best friend, brother, sister kind of vibe, which is fantastic going through the entire movie. And like I was saying, that it is so fun and hilarious, but it also has so much heart. I feel like Michelle Rodriguez could almost be counted as typecasted in this role.
Right.
But she gives all these layers to this character that I've never seen in any other character she's played. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of her work.
Right.
Aside from like Fast and Furious, but
right.
You know, this was such a layered character. She goes through so much in this movie, and it's so fun and incredible to watch.
Yeah, no, she was a standout for me. Chris Pine was great. He was charming, but I think that's very archetypal to who Chris Pine is and the kind of roles, and I think that's why he was casted perfectly for Edgin in this movie. But Michelle Rodriguez, like you said, like she seems kind of typecast to be in this role, and she still delivered on all the action. She did not shy away in any means. She delivered brute strength. There were people in the audience that were just like, oh, like when she would do some sort of massive action scene, and it was just incredible to watch because, she did not shy away from any of the hand-to-hand combat. She really leaned into it. And like you said, Meg, there's so many more layers to her character that actually add a lot of heart and emotion throughout the story. And yeah, I think this was very refreshing to see Michelle Rodriguez, embrace the tough side of her, but also bring something new to this role. So she was absolutely fantastic. But Darcy, just to clear something up, is she a human?
Her and Edgin seemed like humans. At least that's what I was getting from it. Just they're both humans. One was a bard, one's a barbarian. It's the other characters who fill out the party that start, filling in some of those other race roles or species roles in the D&D universe. So
right.
Again, it was really cool to see how they incorporated all these different races and stuff just into the background to really flesh out the world. And as a fan of D&D, I'm noticing a character in the background being like, oh, that's so-and-so, and this is this. And like, you guys just see a fantasy world and can take it in as that. But as a fan of the world, I can look so much further into it, and it still all rings true to what D&D is. It was so well done. And just on the topic of standout performances, Hugh Grant, to me, stole the show. It was such a unique character for him to play, and he had a lot of fun with it, and it was wicked. Anytime he was on screen, I was sure to be laughing at something he's saying or doing. So again, to me, he was a standout in that it was so different when you hear Hugh Grant in a role. This is the last thing I would have pictured.
Well, I was going to say, talk about typecasting for Michelle Rodriguez. This is the exact opposite. I don't think any of us have ever seen Hugh Grant play a character like this, and he does such a wonderful job. It's so exciting to watch him change and surprise you throughout the film. It's mind-blowing.
There was a Guy Ritchie film that Hugh Grant recently did that's on Netflix. Not recently, I think it was in the last 2 or 3 years. I think it was called Gentleman. But he plays an over-eccentric British figure. And I saw little nuances of that over-the-top Hugh Grant in his portrayal of Ford.
Yeah.
But then you also get the subtle parts that are, typically Hugh Grant, long face, just, like that. But there was a sense of almost zaniness to Hugh Grant's character that felt, incredibly unique. And you could see he was having fun with it. And I absolutely loved it. And I think he was the perfect con man for this story. Rounding out the rest of our team of heroes, we have Justice Smith and Sophia Lilly. Justice Smith plays Simon, who is, I believe, a wizard, right, Darcy?
Yeah, he's a half-elf wizard.
He's a half-elf wizard. Yeah, I noticed the ears, so I didn't know that. And then Sophia Lillis, who plays Doric, I believe a druid,
and she's also a tiefling, which is again another really cool deep cut from the D&D player's handbook. Basically, a lot of people like those characters, and again, having one in the party is par for the course in a D&D campaign.
Oh, well, that's pretty cool. But both of these characters were, we're kind of figuring their stuff out, and what was great is that Edgin and Holga very much were like mentors to them, and served as some great comedic material for the movie, as we see Simon, fumbling and trying to find his way, but also, the cold shoulder that Doric would often give to her teammates. It kind of matched that of Holga's sort of tough, stern exterior. But I think what's great is that both Simon and Doric, they're coming into their own as heroes and as leaders. So I thought that was really great, and I think they were perfectly casted. another character we didn't talk about though is Regé Jean Paul's.
I was just going to bring him up. Yeah.
How do you pronounce his name, Darcy? Is it Zink?
Zink.
And I'm not familiar with who his character is in the lore. Maybe you can educate us a little bit more.
He's a paladin, and again, I'm not sure what his race would be, but he's some long-lived race, and just the way that he, like, in any campaign, paladins are known for fighting for their god and very holier than thou, and if they see someone in trouble, they have to stop and help them. Very righteous. And the way that they play that to humor in this movie is so great. And again, so true to D&D, because everyone in the party, when the paladin is being all, holy and doing their thing, everyone else is just face palming and rolling their eyes, being like, okay, come on, let's go. I get it. Okay, I understand you want to kill the guy, but maybe we sneak by him instead, type thing. Like, it's all the class humor that they brought to this really shone through, because again, that is core to a D&D campaign, where the characters messing up their spell and always doing that, leading to insecurities. That is straight from a campaign, and I love how it's, without showing any dice being rolled, I can almost picture the rolls that these characters are getting when they're doing the actions, and how that's making me laugh, because the failures or the successes and everything about it, so good.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised with Regé, because I don't think he was trying to be funny. I just think naturally, because he was so serious, he just came off funny. It was just, it was hilarious. Like he kind of had like that Drax sort of mentality where things just kind of went over his head. And he had no sense of he had no sense of reading other people and reading other people's humor in the room. Yeah. So it just made for a really interesting dynamic, especially given the fact that like Edgin is just so like, he's charming, he's sarcastic, he's witty. You know what I mean? And like it would just bounce off of Zink.
Oh my God,
it's bullets.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
He didn't read the sarcasm or the irony or anything. It was like so literal, which is what made him so funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As we were mentioning, Hugh Grant is the con man. He's associated with the villain, which comes from a more mystical side of the lore, which was a red wizard. Is that right? And played by Daisy Head. I think her name was Safina, if I'm not mistaken.
The Thayan Red Wizard.
Yes, she was interesting. This is where it kind of felt a little typical, if that that makes sense. In that you just had like this sort of in the shadows threat that obviously was a threat. You could clearly tell that she was the threat and what was going on. So they didn't necessarily hide it all too well, I would say.
But were they even trying to hide it?
To me, I don't think they were, because in a D&D campaign, you know who the bad guys are almost from minute one. It's just how do you stop them, or how do you unveil their plans to the people they've been fooling this whole time. So that kind of again felt like par for the course for D&D stuff. A lot of the plot moments that in regular movies most people would be like, oh, that's got to be a plot hole, or that doesn't make sense, that's way too convenient. In a D&D campaign, that stuff happens all the time, because the DM may have planned all these things, but if the character party goes a different direction entirely, you got to improvise on the fly to make sure that you can get back to that main story that you're trying to tell. So everything about the villain really rung true to a true D&D villain, where that they're evil. It's just, how do you expose that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
How do they figure out that she's the evil one?
Okay, well now that's got me thinking differently. So then they really did play true to kind of the experience of the game, which is refreshing.
So cool.
Our cast of heroes come together, and as you guys pointed out, there's just so much humor. I was surprised at how much humor was in this movie. I don't know, like were you guys taken back by that?
I mean, from that trailer, it shows us watching Chris Pine like skip and play whatever that instrument is that he's playing. And I was like, well, this is going to be hilarious if that is a huge part of it. And I've also seen him in certain movies like Princess Diaries, which a lot of people don't remember him from.
Me specifically.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of other Into the Woods is the one that I really reflect back on when I'm watching D&D, because he plays this eccentric Prince Charming who just doesn't really understand what's going on around him, and everything will just work out great. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's obviously more layers to Edgin than there was to Prince Charming, but he is so good at being dry and sarcastic, and that is my exact sense of humor. So I think every single line from the moment he appeared on screen to the end of the movie, I was laughing. He is so, so funny. But then the other characters shine in the humor as well. Like Michelle Rodriguez, again, adds that layer of hilarity. Justice Smith playing Simon was so funny in his like the lack of confidence that he had in himself and
insecurity,
trying to play it off like he could. And then Doric, again, her like her stoicness and her dry sense of humor, the lack of emotion behind the things that she said made it funny. I don't know. I laughed. And then there were some surprise funny moments that I'm not going to say on here, but one particular interaction that happened with an actor I didn't know was going to be in this movie. I was like, could have peed my pants.
There were some surprises, and that definitely had the audience chuckling and laughing out loud. But, in regards to what you guys were talking about with Safina, it does make sense that she would feel a little more typical as a villain for this story. And I think each of the characters like that we've talked about on our Band of Heroes feel very typical for this type of fantasy adventure, but they play those roles in such an honest way that feels more to who they are as real people rather than just to the characters that they're actually playing. Like Edgin, played by Chris Pine, who is naturally charming, and Michelle Rodriguez, who is naturally a badass. It really, really worked well. But speaking of things that worked, what about what didn't work? Was there anything for you guys from this movie that just didn't work for you?
The one thing I will say I thought wasn't going to work, because I have nothing that didn't work. I thought there was going to be a part of the movie, because there tends to be in films where I don't know the backstory. I want to look at my phone and see what time it is. I often have that issue with pacing when I don't know where certain characters are from, or I don't understand backstory or the lore behind a film, especially fantasy movies. I will start to get bored. But that never happened in this movie. When it was over, I wanted it to keep going. I was like, keep going. I thought it was ending at one point, and it wasn't ending, and I was okay with it. Normally, when there's like a couple endings to a movie, that's when the boredom starts to set in, or you're like, okay, come on, get it over with. But it just was never dull.
That's well said. But you talked about the expositional qualities. Each of these characters have their own expositional introduction that feels so fitting to a Dungeons and Dragons game with the pageantry, the epicness, and it's like I think in many cases that might bother a lot of people, where it's very heavy on the exposition. I know it's bothered me at times, but the repetitive nature of this, it fits because we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. So to give each of these characters this sort of expository introduction to understand who they are, it actually fit really, really well. So I thought it was smart. Like, it leaned into that. And I don't know if I'm like just crazy for thinking that, but I don't know, Darcy, is that, am I on the right track there?
100%. Like, I mean, every D&D campaign I've ever been a part of, at least, and I know a lot of my friends, their campaigns start off the same way too. It's where every hero you make has to have a tragic backstory, because why else would they be going out to fight evil and stuff like that? So this movie, giving each character their own, again, a tragic backstory that they have a time to talk out and tell you basically at the first campaign, it ends up being funny because you expect it to be coming, and then it comes exactly as you were expecting it, and just they move on very quickly. And that's straight from a D&D campaign, in that you have to tell your story before you can start creating a new story. So it's perfect execution of that in terms of the party.
It almost, like you said, you almost expected it every time you were introduced to a new character. It almost, and it almost felt like, not obviously in the same vein, but those moments that are of like recaps that are narrated by Lewis from Ant-Man. Like, it's just like, it takes you back, but you're seeing it through their eyes, you're seeing their experience, and I thought it was great. So I don't know. I asked for what didn't work. I still gave you something that worked. I think we're on to wrapping up with our final thoughts, and we'll be rating this movie on a score of 1 to 5 natural 20s. Meg, why don't you kick things off?
Sure. I mean, listening to this podcast, I feel like I didn't say a single bad thing about it. So, I loved all of the performances. Everyone did a fantastic job. It was gut-bustingly funny. It was exciting. It was adventurous. There were so many layers to the story, to the characters. A fun, quick Megan fact, I get startled easily, and Darcy can attest to this. I was startled exactly 3 times and very much like it flew out of my chair. I loved every single part of this movie. I'm so excited to see it again. I'm going to give this 5 out of 5 natural 20s. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Jarnathan. Enough said.
Well said, actually. Darcy, how about you?
Yeah, again, this was everything I wanted from a D&D movie, to the point where there were times in the movie where I'm just thinking to myself, oh, I've been there, or I've done that, or the same situation has happened to a party I was running. Like, so many things were relatable, and I can't wait to talk about it with a lot of my parties or the people I've played with, because I'm sure they'll have those same instances of being like, that reminded me of when we were doing this type thing. So everything about it, from the humor to the action, was so perfect, and so it fits so well in the world of D&D that I cannot wait for more. And I'm hoping that we do get more stories. I don't care if it's with the same cast. Just let these guys who wrote the movie tell more D&D quests or campaigns, because it was so perfect from start to finish. Yeah, a strong 5 out of 5 natural 20s for me.
Well, damn. You know what? This was a short and sweet review for the right reasons, because we ain't got nothing bad to say. Yeah, this is a fantasy adventure movie done right. It's playful, it's charming, it's full of heart. It has fun with the genre and never takes itself seriously, especially given the rich lore, as we were talking about with D&D. And as I mentioned, I was a little concerned with not having any familiarity with the game, but I was surprised at how much I really loved this movie. And the movie itself, like we said, has fun with the lore in that it's less concerned about explaining every detail, but rather just keeping the vibes of the good adventure going. And like you said, Darcy, like, if you know, you know. If you're someone who's played the game, you know. But at the same time, it's not hindering on the experience of new fans that are coming into this and want to experience a fantasy adventure. So for that, it is a huge success. You know, simply put, this is legendary, and I honestly believe that it's rolled a natural 20 on its execution. It will leave audiences spellbound, and I honestly think that Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley did it right. They found a unique voice for this film that blends both the bizarre and fantastical elements of D&D with hilarious laugh out loud moments, and honestly, it just comes together to create something just absolutely extraordinary. And as we were saying, like, we can't say enough about this cast. Like, they each bring something unique, similar to like a Guardians of the Galaxy or another fantasy genre show that I mentioned before, Willow, which it's so funny that, you know, the day that we went and saw this is the day that we found out that the show was on hiatus or canceled. And so much of what that show did right, with its modern touches, its sense of adventure, and just having like really real relatable people in this magical fantastical world, that's what D&D does. It has these characters that come together, a reluctant group of characters who are a mixed bag of tricks that, you know, bring the laugh and the heart, you know, and they're led by Chris Pine's naturally charming personality and Michelle Rodriguez's badass persona. She's playing someone that is kind of typecasted to her, but she's adding so much more layers to it. And I actually had an emotional response to it. Like, it was so well done. I am all in for more on this franchise. Like, just give me more. Like, give me sequels, give me spin-offs, give me whatever you think, but keep the tone the way it is. And I think, honestly, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is a must-see for all. So yeah, it is 5 out of 5 natural 20s for me too. Well, that is it for our spoiler-free review for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Again, a huge thanks to our friends at Paramount Pictures and Paramount Pictures Canada for inviting us out to the screening so we can get you this review nice and early. But that is it for us. We hope you enjoyed this spoiler-free review, and if you did, feel free to leave us a 5-star review. We always appreciate the love. And if you want to write into the show and let us know your thoughts of Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves once you see it March 31st, well, you can write into us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT or on Instagram at We Are Geekcentric. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other geeky content for you to enjoy covering the world of movies and TV shows, including our spoiler-free review for Ted Lasso, episodes 1 to 4. First 2 episodes of the series are out now for you to enjoy on Apple TV+. But we were fortunate enough, thanks to our friends at Apple TV, to see the first 4 episodes, so we let you know our thoughts. It's a little bit more of a discussion than anything else. Also, later this week, we have more spoiler-free reviews coming at you. We're going to have our spoiler-free review for Tetris, an Apple TV original film, which hits the streaming platform March 31st. And then we'll also have a spoiler-free review for Kill Boksoon, a Korean film that is hitting Netflix also March 31st. So you'll definitely want to catch those ahead of their drop on streaming platforms. Plus, if you're a fan of all things Star Wars, we do have our watch club going on for Star Wars The Bad Batch Season 2. The series is coming to a close on Disney Plus this week, so we'll be recording our finale, and we will probably have that out Friday at some point. And sticking with all things Star Wars, we do have our ongoing watch club for Star Wars The Mandalorian Season 3, with our most recent episode out now for Chapter 20. Nate and myself sat down with Alden Diaz from Octu Radio, a Star Wars podcast, and we chatted about all things from Chapter 20, and we got into full spoilers. It was an absolute delight of a conversation to have. We were so blessed to have Alden on, so you'll definitely want to give that a listen. But we are going to be taking a pause here at Chapter 20, Episode 4 of Season 3. Nate and the rest of the crew are actually going to be heading to Star Wars Celebration, and they're going to be doing some traveling. So while you can anticipate an episode recanting all the adventures from Star Wars Celebration in London, we're going to actually be putting out a spoiler-filled discussion for the last 4 chapters of Season 3. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you listen to podcasts so you know when our latest episodes drop. Meg, Darcy, thank you so much for joining me for today's adventurous spoiler-free review. And as we say, laters.
Bye.
Peace.